What is up, addicts? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. In this video, we're going to be giving you a fantasy outlook for Baker Mayfield, quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, giving you guys an expectation of what we think they'll be able to do for fantasy in 2020. Before we get started, hit that like and subscribe button for more content like this one. Also, check out our website for a full list of rankings updated weekly, and we'll be updating those all the way up until the time the NFL draft starts. So check that out. You can sign up for free clicking the link in the description or going to fantasyaddictionnetwork.com. But not wasting any more time, let's get right into it. So last year was, to put it nicely, not a good year for Baker Mayfield. Now, there were multiple factors to that. For one, it was pretty clear that Freddie Kitchens' play calling and his inability to stick to the game plan after practicing for something all week, he would just completely change the game plan in the middle of the game. That is not good for a young quarterback in the NFL. And the offensive line in Cleveland was also less than mediocre. It was pretty bad. So there were things that were working against Baker Mayfield last year where, given it's his second year in the league, you can't give him a complete pass. But if he ends up succeeding this year, it'll be a little bit more understandable considering the elements that were working against him. Defense also wasn't doing many favors either. So finishes 2019 with 3,800 passing yards, 22 touchdowns to 21 interceptions, 141 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Finishes the season with 250 fantasy points, which put him at 19th, averaging 16.77 fantasy points a game, put him at 22nd. So when we look at his box score, you weren't ever super satisfied that you had Baker Mayfield, and he also faced the hardest strength of schedule against the quarterback position. So like I said, there's a lot of excuses that we can make for Baker Mayfield. The question then becomes whether or not the excuses are actually worth it, or if we're just making them to make them. But again, you can tell a story based on all of the factors surrounding Baker Mayfield's poor season as to why it happened. But just purely looking at the data, you're pretty disappointed in him almost every single week. He had two top six quarterback weeks and two more where he finished in the top 12. So you really only had 4 weeks that you were probably happy that you started him. Most redraft players had dropped Baker Mayfield pretty early on in the season. You probably had to keep him on in two quarterback and dynasty leagues, though, and people are wondering what are they going to get from him this year. So we'll talk about some of the metrics, and then we'll talk a little bit about the changes that happened in Cleveland. So continuing along this story, Baker was throwing the ball deep down the field a lot. He threw 74 deep ball attempts, which was seventh in the NFL, and he had a decent deep ball completion percentage at 39.2%, number 13. His true completion rate, however, was 64.2%. That's excluding drops. That's 34th in the league. Not good. His clean pocket completion, so when he actually had time to throw the ball, was also bad, so that's on him. 65.4%, that's 35th. Adjusted yards per attempt, 5.8, 29th. So it was overall not an efficient year. And then 29 interceptable passes. Obviously, 21 of them turned into interceptions, but he could have had 8 more. But he did also have 25 money throws. So he really reminds you, in terms of his play style, of a guy like Brett Favre that can throw the ball up with reckless abandon, and a lot of times it will look amazing, and other times it will look just downright terrible. So the question now is, will Baker continue the trajectory to become Jameis Winston, or will he be able to refine his skills a little bit more and be closer to Brett Favre? Time will tell on that one. So what does this mean? Knowing what we know about Baker Mayfield, putting him into a Kevin Stefanski offense. We don't know exactly how Kevin Stefanski wants to run his team, but it's pretty evident by the moves that they made in the offseason and in the draft that they want to resemble what the Vikings looked like last year. And what the Vikings looked like last year was a team that ran the ball as much as they passed the ball. It was a run-first team. They have a good run-blocking offensive line, and the engine of the offense was Dalvin Cook. So what the Browns are trying to emulate now is a similar structure. They go out and get Jack Conklin, great run blocking tackle from Tennessee, someone that helped Derrick Henry look really good last year, and now he's going to be helping out Nick Chubb. And then they grab Jedrick Wills in the draft arguably the most seasoned and ready tackle from the NFL draft. So massive boost to their offensive line. That is definitely going to help their run game, but it will also help their pass game. Baker Mayfield isn't getting slammed and pressured as much as he was last year. It should give him a little bit more time to calm down and make the throws, especially if they are able to run the ball effectively. That should also open things up for Baker Mayfield a little bit more. So while I can definitely see the story of how this turns into a more efficient year for Baker Mayfield, he also was riding on a very high pass volume attempts. And without that, his ceiling is going to be capped. If this team really does try to perform what the Vikings did last year and it succeeds, raise your hands if you were excited to own Kirk Cousins last year, even though he was an efficient and accurate quarterback, even deep down the field. From a fantasy angle, Kirk Cousins was never really worth starting, and you were probably only happy if you had him in like a 2 quarterback league. So his upside, if the Browns offense works and clicks the way that they want it to, is basically Kirk Cousins. The only way that he would hit beyond that is if the Browns defense doesn't support the game plan. If they have to constantly flip things around because game script is dictating that they can't run the ball as much, then you could see Baker open things up a little bit. And I think that would be the best case scenario for Baker's fantasy value, is that the run game isn't as heavily used or utilized as Kevin Stefanski wants it to be. And again, that would probably weigh heavily on the Browns defense not working out to perfection. So right now we have it projected for, like I was saying, more efficiency. We see his passing touchdown volume go up, interceptions come down, cleaner pocket with more time to think, with better run and pass blocking tackles. Having a better offensive line should give Baker Mayfield a little bit more time to not make as many mistakes and be a little bit more efficient on those deep throws as well. But flipping that around, since we're not expecting him to be throwing the ball as much, it doesn't really bring his upside up tremendously. So there's a lot of things that would have to turn around, and basically the game plan would have to fall apart without the offense falling apart for Baker to hit his true ceiling. So that's why we have his upside ranking put at 3/5. Do I think he's worth a pick as a second quarterback just in case this team turns into something dynamic and lightning and we see a third year huge step from Baker? Sure. Is he a decent target in best ball leagues? Sure. But he's not someone I'm actively targeting at his draft position right now. There's a lot of quarterbacks in that tier that I feel like they have greater chance of hitting their upside. There's a lot of things that would have to go right for Baker to hit his fantasy upside, and that really means the only way for him to hit his fantasy upside is if the Browns are either a bad team, but he's more efficient, or the Browns are so good, but it's not because of the run game, which that's really hard to believe based on the moves that they made. Even adding Austin Hooper, they're wanting to run 2 tight end sets. It's not going to be a high pass volume team just based on all the moves that they've made. So it's really hard to envision Baker hitting his ceiling unless a lot of things click. So that's my take on Baker. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree in the comment section below. Hit that like and subscribe button for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next one.